Thank you, Marco. It's a privilege and an honor to chair the final session of this conference. I hope you all enjoyed the week and all the presentations. And now we'll have a session where we'll get reports from several important committees, and we'll start out with Professor Florencia Canelli from the University of Zurich, who will summarize C11 progress.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So that's it. This is the C11 summary. That's usually given once a year at ICFA or in a LeptonPhoton. Let's see, I can't. Okay, so this is a quick summary for those that don't know what C11 is. It's the Commission of Particle Fields of the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics, that's IUPAP. The main activities of the committee is the supervision of international conferences such as this one, and ICFA and others, as you'll see. But also we also supervise the International Committee for Future Accelerators and do some every few years reports on main issues of the particle physics community health, like reports on authorships and recognitions of members in large collaborations, etc. Recently, we had a panel on neutrinos, as I will say something in one slide later. And then every 2 years we have the Young Scientist Prize. We make a call and receive nominations and make the selection, and that is usually given is always given at ICFA. For the past couple of years now during COVID, we also concentrated on collecting and summarizing the best practices for virtual conferences for worldwide accessibility. So also we'll say something about that. Now the C11 membership, right? Currently is this is the new membership that started in October 2021, and it will end in 2024. So I'm currently the chair, and I want to thank also the outgoing members that we had, and especially to Heidi Shellman, who was a diligent member and then secretary and chair for the last 10 years of C11. Okay, so now these are, I'm not going to go through these are the IUPAP major policies of trying to ensure the free movement of scientists, encourage accessibility, gender and national balance in physics, and also have policies to prevent harassment of individuals or groups at conferences, and also advise on reporting and achieving these goals. So these are part of the core of the IUPAP, and that we also try to follow in C11. At the 30th General Assembly of IUPAP, that was in the last October in 2021. These are some of the resolutions that we had, and that are pertinent to the awards and conferences that I will say something later. Mainly, we have for the awards. Then now the Young Scientist Prize is now called Early Career Scientist Prize. This is also to reflect the fact that it's also not only intended for young people in terms of chronological age, but also in terms of the stage in their career. And that also that the IUPAP that now formally says also that the career interruptions should be excluded when counting years. In addition, also it is also explicitly mentioned now that the nominees should meet some commonly held standards of professional ethics and scientific integrity, and that is asked for the nominator to make sure that the nominee satisfies this expectation. In addition, there's also a mandate to the commission chairs to make sure that there's a sufficiently diverse, in particular in gender and other unrepresented groups in geographical regions, by monitor. There's an extended pool of people in the selection by monitoring the nominations, making sure that sending reminders as wide as possible, and then also extending deadlines if necessary. On the size of the conferences, that was also something that was largely talked about in IUPAP because of the changes to virtual online conferences, and the IUPAP is currently updating these guidelines for good practice to cover also virtual online conferences. Now, there's also a call upon all organizing scientific meetings and conferences that include participation to take strict consideration of issues of accessibility restriction, that is to continue to make sure that there is no issues with and in geographical locations, that is that everybody, that there's a global access to these virtual conferences. Okay, that's it. So this is a summary. I'm not going to go through this slide, just to mention that we had every 6 months or so, when we meet to discuss the conferences, we are collecting the input from the conferences organizers, as we will do with LeptonPhoton, and then this is a summary of what we think that we recommend to do for virtual conferences. And LeptonPhoton was an example of doing all this. Now, there was as I mentioned earlier, there was a IUPAP neutrino panel report. That was the IUPAP panel was established to promote international cooperation in the development of experimental programs to study the properties of neutrinos. This was established in 2018, and this was a combined effort not only under C11 but also under the Commission C4 and C12. The panel had 3 co-chairs from 3 different regions and 19 members of 11 countries. The final product of this neutrino panel was writing a white paper, which is here to the left, and when you can find it in the archive. The idea of this paper was to cover the present status of the global neutrino physics program, and also the development that can happen or can be expected in the 5 to 10 year timescale. In addition, they also collected the R&D and measures, including software that are required also for less than a 10-year program, and then also to the medium to long-term program that is between 10 and 25 years to fulfill this potential. Once that a draft report was written, then it was sent to the worldwide community, and a lot of feedback was collected from the community, which was implemented in this report. And then now it has been submitted to IUPAP C11, and as I said earlier, you can find it in the archive. Yeah. Now, on the upcoming conferences, next for LeptonPhoton, we have 2023 is in Melbourne, and then ICFA is this year in Bologna, and then later in Prague. Also this year, these are conferences that we have support and endorse as type A. There's also type B conferences that we have that in 2022, B or C. And 2022 are is Neutrino, LHCP, ICFA seminar, and Baldin seminar. In 2023 is TIP is in South Africa, and then CHEP in Norfolk in Jefferson Lab. And I will say something about TIP now, because some restructuring has happened. TIP is a conference that happens every 3 years, and a few years ago, it lacked of some structure or some continuity. So C11 asked to create a steering committee for the conference, and also some tip, and the steering committee then later create also a set of bylaws to establish, to make sure that this very successful conference has a continuity. And those are the names that you find here on the right. These are the steering committee, and then you can also find the bylaws. ICFA 2022 is progressing actively with organization. Currently is planning in a mix in-person and remote mode. This is what is planning right now. Now it is moving quickly, and then next week there's the opening. It will be the opening for registration and also the call for abstracts. Also next week, next Monday, the competition, the winner of the competition for the brand logo type which received more than 350 applications, will be known on Monday. And also on Monday will be the social accounts for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter of the conference will be open. Another big news is that hopefully, so the gala dinner is confirmed in the historic and extremely central Palazzo Renzo, and that is hopefully we can be there in person. In 2023, we have LeptonPhoton in Melbourne, this organized by Monash University, and that's in the middle of July. And this is an advertisement, and then you can also find LeptonPhoton2023 Monash in Twitter right now. And beyond this, we have also the solicitation for 2025 and beyond. So IUPAP C11, we are, as IUPAP C11, we are soliciting applications from institute interested in hosting LeptonPhoton in 2025, and then ICHEP in 2026. And interested parties should contact me. And if you have any questions about what any of the organizational questions, you can always contact me about that. But there's a very clear set of guidelines for conferences in that webpage, in the webpage in this link here. And last but not least, we are currently have a call open for the every 2 years Early Career Scientist Award. This is going to be given in ICHEP, and the deadline is February 1st, so it's coming up. And this is we have awards for two people, and then the candidates should have a maximum of 8 years of research, excluding careers interruptions following the PhD. The nominations, there is right now we have changed the nominations, and they are doing the academic job online. And there's a set of instructions on how to do that, but the type of nomination, the way the procedure of nomination hasn't changed, just the place. So that's it from my side. So I want to thank the host of Virtual Manchester, especially Marco, for all the work organizing this conference, and also all the excellent speakers and poster presenters. And we hope to see you in ICHEP 2022. In Bologna. Thank you.
Thank you, Florencia. And I think I speak for all the organizers, and specifically Marco, in thanking the committee for all the support we got in organizing the conference under these somewhat difficult circumstances. Any questions or contributions?
Oops.
I can only reiterate that, and also thank you for all the support, not just in these circumstances, but pre-COVID already.
Yeah.
with all the discussions we had about the conference format and so on. That was extremely helpful.
No, you're welcome. That's what we do.
Okay, thanks, Florencia, for this overview and summary. And we move on in the agenda. The next presentation is by Stuart Henderson, who is the chair of ICFA and who will report on ICFA activities.
Great, thank you very much, Stefan. I assume you can see my screen and hear me just
Everything
fine.
is good?
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to give a brief update on ICFA activities to LeptonPhoton. So let me jump in, and a little bit like Florencia started, for those of you who may not be aware, let me describe a little bit what ICFA is and what it does. So ICFA stands, of course, for the International Committee for Future Accelerators. It was created in the mid-1970s to facilitate international collaboration, particularly in the construction and use of very large accelerators for high energy physics. The purpose, and I need to point out, it was created by the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics, so it reports up to C11, as Florencia noted. its purposes were written down in 1985, and they're still highly relevant today. ICFA is supposed to promote international collaboration in all aspects of very high energy accelerators, from construction to exploitation. ICFA is to organize world-inclusive meetings for the exchange of information on future planning for large-scale accelerator facilities and for the formulation of advice on joint studies and uses of accelerators. ICFA also is supposed to organize workshops for the study of specific technical issues related to what at that time was phrased super high energy accelerator complexes and their international exploitation for research, international exploitation, and also fostering R&D of the underlying technologies. So, that's a very good description. Today, ICFA really focuses on fostering discussion on international aspects of particle physics, in particular, the large accelerators that are really at the heart of the field. And as it does that, ICFA is a pretty unique organization because it brings together people at the level of laboratory directors throughout the world and representatives from the field regionally to serve as a facilitator for the particle physics community, with a particular eye on large-scale facilities. This shows a list of the members of ICFA up through the end of 2021. As we enter 2022, there will be a few changes here, but you can see the regional makeup of ICFA members. This is established by statute, if you will, with a rather precise formula for regional representation across the globe. But the point is to pull together regional representatives, particularly as you see from those regions with large activities in high energy physics and accelerated facilities, but also to be inclusive of all worldwide activities. What does ICFA do? So ICFA meetings, we meet usually about twice per year, often in association with major particle physics conferences. So ordinarily, were we in person, we would have a satellite meeting here at LeptonPhoton. And that's a very valuable forum for exchange of information across regions and laboratories. And again, because ICFA is made up of laboratory directors and regional representatives, it's extremely useful for that group to be able to compare notes and update peers at regular intervals, twice a year. ICFA can take action in the form of recommendations, in the form of statements that are made public. As ICFA really speaks for the global particle physics community at the level of laboratory directors and regional representatives, those recommendations tend to carry weight. They tend to get noticed. The second are ICFA seminars. Every 3 years, ICFA organizes a seminar on future perspectives in high energy physics, generally at one of the major laboratories, and the program typically really focuses on reviewing the state of accelerators and particle physics research around the world. It's a relatively small conference or workshop with attendance usually limited to the order of 150 to 200. And again, with good global representation with attendees from all regions throughout the world. It also tends to attract science officials from governments and funding agencies. They're also invited and ordinarily eager to participate. So these are extremely valuable events held, only a few times a decade. The most recent was in Ottawa in 2017. And as Florencia indicated, we had been planning the next ICFA seminar in the fall of 2021. Of course, that did not happen, had to get rescheduled. We originally had sites on March of 2022. We have canceled that. So we're going to hold off on setting a date until we have some clarity on when we can actually hold this event in person. Finally, ICFA panels. This is a really active part, and a lot of what sits at the heart of what ICFA does. Over the years, ICFA has formed several panels. I'll summarize those on the next slide, each focused on a specific topical area with real, I would say, international relevance in one way or another. Panels are typically very active, organizing schools, workshops, publications on their specific technical topics, and serving generally as a very valuable resource to the international community of particle physicists and accelerator scientists and technologists. The ICFA panels are summarized on this slide. The first is the International Linear Collider International Development Team. That has a very special character, and I'm going to hold off on describing that in a minute. I have several slides that describe activities of the ILC IDT. The ongoing panels, though, are the next set. So there's the ICFA Instrumentation Innovation and Development panel. One recent news item you may have heard about is that we announced a set of ICFA instrumentation awards to be run by the Instrumentation Innovation and Development panel. That announcement came out in December, the goal of which is to recognize contributions in the field of detector and instrumentation development. The next is the ICFA Beam Dynamics panel. This panel has been running for decades and serves a very valuable resource, and one of its principal products is a regular beam dynamics report that, like I said, has been ongoing for decades. Essentially a set of review articles on very specific accelerator science and technology topics of relevance for the field. About 2 years ago, those beam dynamics reports began to be published in the Journal of Instrumentation. So that's a very valuable resource, I think, that this panel serves to the field of accelerator S&T. We have a panel on advanced and novel accelerators. So these are a set of scientists focused on really cutting edge technologies for future accelerators to achieve super high energies and accelerating gradients. There's a standing committee on interregional connectivity, looking at data and networking. There's a study group on data preservation in high energy physics. And there's a panel on sustainable accelerators and colliders. One news item there I'll throw out is that the mandate was recently broadened to include not only sustainability of our facilities, but also a focus on ways in which accelerator technologies may be able to help solve problems in energy and the environment. Here is a timeline of recent ICFA activities and events. Shown in blue are dates of meetings. The last in-person meeting that ICFA had right before the pandemic was at SLAC in late February of 2020. And at that time, ICFA advocated for the establishment of what now is called International Development Team to facilitate transition into the preparatory phase of the ILC. So ICFA in that statement reconfirmed the international consensus for a Higgs factory and the desire to see timely construction of the ILC in Japan. And as a way to do that, advocated for establishing this IDT that I'm going to describe in just a moment. ICFA met remotely, of course, since then, twice per year. And in August of 2020, approved the formation of the International Linear Collider International Development Team with a mandate to make preparations for the ILC so-called pre-lab in Japan, which I'll describe here in just a moment. ICFA also took note of and applauded the 2020 update of the European strategy for particle physics at that time as well, and released a statement. ICFA met in the fall and winter, and little less than 1 year ago, as a result of the meeting in March, wrote a letter to the next minister at that time, Minister Hagiuda, relative to the International Linear Collider activities. ICFA received a letter in response from next Minister Hagiuda several months later, and ICFA submitted the International Development Team proposal in June of 2021. I'll say more about that here in the next couple of slides. So you probably know that ICFA has been quite active in helping steward and shepherd linear collider activities over the last decades, actually. The most recent news I've tried to summarize here and on the prior slides. So ICFA stood up an international development team that was formed to prepare the way for the ILC pre-lab. It had a mandate to articulate the function and organization of the ILC pre-lab, develop a common understanding for the condition for starting the pre-lab, provide an overall international framework for the ILC accelerator effort. You may know that the linear collider collaboration activities came to an end about 1.5 years ago. The IDT picked up and provided a framework for that continued collaboration within our field. It provides also an international framework for ILC physics and detector activities as one central element of the IDT. It started conversations with potential international scientific partners and encouraged government funding agencies to engage in discussions, and worked with national authorities to help get the ILC IDT pre-lab rather off the ground. So here's the organization of the International Development Team. Tatsuya Nakata serves as the executive board chair. He chairs one of 3 working groups. There is a working group focused on just what I described, the pre-lab itself, setup, organization, rules of operation, how it functions, pulling in international partners, and so on. There's a second working group focused on the technology aspects of the accelerator, and a third working group focused on physics and detectors. This group came together and developed a proposal that went into MEXT for establishing the pre-lab, and that was submitted in June of 2021. I mentioned that ICFA crafted and sent a letter to the MEXT minister in March. The point of that was to encourage MEXT to reach out to foreign government officials to discuss potential commitments toward realizing the ILC. And in some cases, this letter followed some indications of willingness to engage in serious discussion with potential partners and really encourage beginning those discussions. So we received a letter back from the MEXT minister. You know, I'm not going to read all this, but you can find it out there. It's certainly made its way through the community. You know, talking about the appropriateness of continuing discussions regarding the ILC, but also pointing out the difficulties in sort of assessing the international and external cooperation for the ILC, what could come in terms of financial contributions to the ILC from other regions, and so on. MEXT has since then reconvened the expert panel that they established in 2014 to assess progress in several areas: international cooperation, public and scientific community support, technical feasibility, cost, schedule, human resources, and so on. You may know that MEXT expert panel has met several times. I think they've had up to 5 meetings at this point, approximately once a month over the last several months. They have another meeting, and they are due to publish a report in February or March timeframe. So we are eagerly awaiting that report that I think will be important for sort of framing next steps. So let me close with a little bit of perspective, I think, relevant for this audience in particular. So as ICFA made clear in the February 2020 statement, ICFA is very much behind the international consensus for a Higgs factory, and really, wishes to see the field take the next step toward realizing a Higgs factory. Also wishes to see the timely construction of the ILC in Japan as an approach toward those goals. ICFA is really supportive of and is doing everything we can to encourage international intergovernmental discussion between Japan, the United States, and European nations to advance international collaborative activities for the ILC. ICFA noted the really critical importance for a formal preparatory phase prior to establishing the ILC laboratory and the construction of the ILC to frame out what the international collaboration and commitments might look like, to engage in detailed intergovernmental discussions to be able to flesh out that framework and come to some sort of agreement on how that may take form and take shape. ICFA has taken action to organize ILC activities across the globe, I think as is well known, and has been actively supportive and advocating for taking the next step with the ILC in Japan. ICFA really applauds the regional strategy updates, was very happy to see the European particle physics community strategy update, and supports its calls for strong international collaboration that continues to be a really unique strength of the field. In ICFA's statement, it remarked that for the future initiatives, an electron-positron Higgs factory is considered the highest priority next collider, consistent with prior statements of ICFA, and a proton-proton collider at the highest achievable energy recognizes the ambition for the longer term. ICFA looks forward to the next expert panel report and then the IDT report on status and plans for the pre-lab startup process. And we're expecting that, as I said, in the spring here in the next 1 to 2 months, I would say, and expecting a report from our international development team. The next step for ICFA will be to consider next steps on based on those reports regarding next steps for ILC planning. ICFA continues to serve a really key role in fostering global cooperation and collaboration within our field, and continues working very hard to help the community realize its goals. So with that, thank you very much. Happy to take any questions that there may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, for this overview and summary. Any contributions, questions? I guess this was very clear, and everybody is supportive of a linear collider coming as soon as possible.
Thank you,
Okay.
Stefan.
Thanks, Stuart, for the presentation, and let's move on to Joel Butler from Fermilab, who will talk about the Snowmass process. Joel?
Okay, thank you. Are you seeing my slides?
Yeah, we can hear and see everything. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you for the opportunity to present the status of Snowmass 2021, which is the ongoing US HEP community planning exercise. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the history of the exercises that go under this name. I'll talk about the organization of Snowmass 2021. I'll touch on the impact of COVID on our plans, present the timeline for producing the report, which is our main output, and it's called the Snowmass book. And I'll talk a little bit about schedules of selected upcoming activities, and then conclude. Some resources if you have curiosity or want more information, or perhaps even want to contribute to Snowmass, you can reference some of the links below, and they will guide you to where you need to be. So the history of these Snowmass exercises, which are hosted by the Division of Particles and Fields of the American Physical Society, really started in 1982. The then DPF chair, Charles Baltes, said the 1982 DPF summer study was the first attempt in recent years to bring together physicists from the whole country to consider the future of our field from the point of view of the best overall national program. The DPF Executive Committee feels that this summer study was sufficiently useful in this last respect to hold similar summer studies at appropriate times in future years. The study actually lasted for several months, but it culminated in a 3-week-long workshop in Snowmass, Colorado. And the goal was to identify the most important questions in HEP and the tools and infrastructure required to address them. And I want to say, not parenthetically, that it was recognized even in 1982 that attention to the sociology and demographics of particle physics was a necessary part of the discussion. DPF then sponsored additional community studies in 1984, 86, 88, 90, 96, and 2001. And then there were several smaller events in Snowmass between 2002 and around 2007 or 8. In 2013, for reasons external to HEP, the meeting was held outside of Snowmass at the University of Minnesota, and it was shortened to 10 days. And shortening actually changed it a bit because it did require more work to be done. Now, in 2013, Snowmass provided input to the High Energy Physics Advisory Panel's HEPAP, which is called HEPAP, to a subpanel, which was called the Particle Physics Project Prioritization Panel, and rapidly, because that's a mouthful, became known as P5. Using the Snowmass scientific input and budget scenarios provided by the US Department of Energy, P5 developed and presented to DOE a 10-year execution plan, complete with priorities and specific recommendations for the field in the US. And it kept its eye not only on the 10 years ahead of it, but the 10 years following that. P5 has a very broad mandate, but really does tend to focus on large projects and facilities. The Snowmass book that was produced then was a key input to P5. You can see the cover sheet of the P5 report in the lower right corner, and we will produce a similar report for Snowmass 2021 and present it to the new P5 that will be constituted. And we also produce many contributed papers in the process, and those contributed papers will be and have been always preserved so that you can locate them. So the goal of Snowmass 2021 is another year-long exercise sponsored again by DPF. It's a year-long science study in which the entire HEP community comes together to identify opportunities and, to the extent possible, document a vision for the future of particle physics in the US and its international partners. And its narrative will communicate opportunities to the broader scientific community and the government, and it will provide a validated set of inputs to the next P5. The next P5 is expected to begin its work in the late fall of 2022 and produce a report in the spring of 2023. So it's not that far away, a little more than a year. Young-T Kim, who was DPF chair during the formation stage of this exercise, said, DPF aims for everyone's voice to be heard. Your contributions and participation are critical for the success of Snowmass, and they will naturally occur as part of one or more working groups directed by the conveners of the now 10 frontiers, which I'll get to in a moment. For Snowmass 2021, the final meeting of the community planning exercise will take place at the University of Washington in Seattle from July 17th to 26th this summer, 2022. Now, I always find it curious that this is called Snowmass 2021 because no activity is planned at Snowmass this time. And of course, it's neither started nor will end in 2021. So what does this mean? So the name Snowmass has been retained since it implies an outlook or a state of mind as to how we pursue our high energy physics in the US. First of all, it's community driven, as it has been since 1982, and inclusive. All people and ideas are welcome. It's global, it's open to all, including physicists from all over the world, and importantly, takes into account the plans in all the other regions. And it's interdisciplinary. It reaches out to related fields, and we'll see how that is done. Now, it's in 2021. Well, why is that? Well, my best argument is because it takes place in the same year as LeptonPhoton 2021. At the bottom of the slide, you see a picture of Snowmass, and if you look carefully, you can even see the Snowmass village, which was the venue until recently. And then in 2022, the meeting will be at Seattle, which also has a mountain. You can see the mountain from the campus. It has a bigger village. So the Snowmass organization is based on 10 major groupings, which we call frontiers. You can see each has a few conveners, and you can see the frontiers listed here with their conveners. You recognize many of the names, and you'll recognize, I hope, many of the faces. So we have the accelerator frontier, the cosmic frontier, the community engagement frontier, the computing frontier, energy, instrumentation, and then we have the neutrino frontier, the rare processes and precision measurements frontier, theory frontier, and underground facilities and infrastructure. Each frontier is divided into topical subgroups, and there are an average of 8 of these. So there are for the frontiers, so there are 80 in total, but they do vary from frontier to frontier, and you can see the listing there. And each of these topical subgroups have a couple, 2 or 3 subconveners. In all, more than 1,500 people have signed up to participate in Snowmass and are actively involved. And there are lots more people paying attention to it. An important part of Snowmass is that we have a very energetic and active Snowmass early career group. And early career physicists have been formally represented at Snowmass really at least since 2001. And each edition they gain more formal recognition and take a larger role. So in 2021, the key initiatives are coordination. So this group helps to get early career members involved in doing the work of Snowmass, doing calculations, developing projects. That's all very important, putting their ideas down and really participating. They also do InReach, working on professional development and building cohesion within the early career community. They are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are initiatives to make HEP more representative, welcoming, inclusive, and equitable. They are collecting data by conducting surveys, and they are trying to set up a long-term organization which extends their active life beyond Snowmass. So this is a very active group, and it's an important part. Now, DPF is providing oversight for Snowmass, and this is how they're doing it. One key group is the Snowmass steering group, and that consists of the entire DPF chair line. I am currently the chair of DPF and chair this steering group. But in addition to that, we have representatives of APS divisions that have strong cross-disciplinary links to HEP. So one is the division of the physics of beams. Another is nuclear physics. So for example, the EIC is something that's very interesting, and that we're talking to the people that are involved in that, but there are other links: astrophysics and then gravitational physics. The steering group ensures that we retain a multi and cross-disciplinary focus, and also that we're well aware of opportunities for collaboration. Another aspect of DOE oversight is provided by the DPF oversight is provided by the Snowmass Advisory Group. This includes the steering group. It includes the full executive committee of the DPF. And I want to highlight one thing here, which is that we have an elected early career member at large, who currently is Julia Gonski from Columbia University. And we have representatives of the international community, which are appointed not by us, but by regional and international organizations. And they represent the interests of those regions and organizations in this process. We also have an editor for the Snowmass book, is Michael Peskin from SLAC National Laboratory, and we have a communication and technical liaisons. And the advisory group ensures awareness of international plans, and also is a way to encourage opportunities for collaboration. Now, I want to say a little bit about the impact of COVID. This edition of Snowmass was planned to run from the summer of 2020 to a final get together in July of 2021 at the University of Washington. By early 2021, it became clear that COVID would have a major impact on our ability to carry out the necessary work, because the lack of face-to-face meetings, the lack of direct consultation and mentorship really reduced our efficiency, but also very heavy burdens fell on our young physicists, the ones that really do many of the studies and who we want to essentially prepare to take over our field. These young physicists, especially, many of them had children, and they suddenly had to care for them all day and school them at home. So in consultation with DOE, which agreed to delay P5 by 1 year to 2022-23, we decided to take a 7-month pause or slow down in activities with the expectations that conditions would improve, because we saw the vaccines coming and there were other mitigation measures on the horizon. The meeting at University of Washington was delayed until this coming July 2022. The pause began in January of 2021. We came out of it in stages over the summer, and we had a Snowmass Day on September 24th of 2021, in which everything was declared, started up, and we reviewed the status and plans for completing the work efficiently for the July meeting. And we now hope that vaccination and mitigation will help in the face of Omicron, and we can continue to target July of 2022. And we believe that our study will be sufficiently complete to do that. This is the workflow for the Snowmass book that we will produce. We start with contributed papers. Those papers are rolled up into the work of topical groups. The topical groups then write summaries for the frontiers that they're in. The frontiers then write their summaries, and then it's all brought together and reviewed and synthesized and homogenized, and winds up producing the summary. The report cover for Snowmass 2013 is shown on the left, was 350 pages. The new report is expected to be 500 pages. And as I said, the contributed reports remain part of the record. So the schedule is March 15th, contributed papers are due May 31st, preliminary topical group reports, June 30th, preliminary frontier reports. The July meeting will be where all of the reports are brought together from all the frontiers, and we produce executive summaries. In September, we hope to have a draft executive summary and report summary, and we'll begin some kind of review process to make sure that we've done a good job. And then in October and November, we'll submit, the report will be ready for submission. So I want to mention just a little bit about upcoming activities. We have preparatory all frontier meetings that are scheduled between February and May, 6 of them, in which we plan to sort of wrap the white papers up and begin to synthesize them. We also have an ongoing special seminar series, which is all virtual and will include topics that shape U.S. accelerator activities, including construction projects and R&D. 2 of them have started. There's one ongoing on colliders. One is starting actually later this afternoon on muon properties and decays. These things would influence, for example, the proton source at Fermilab. One is starting up on neutrinos that will meet later on. And then there'll be one on accelerator dark matter searches and other fixed target needs. And then the early career people are running a colloquium series on big questions in particle physics. So I come to my summary and outlook. We think we've gotten past or at least mitigated the impact of Omicron. Of course, that can change, but we think we can work efficiently and complete this process in the next 6 months, despite all the challenges. An amazing amount of outstanding work is being done, and we approach the July meeting. As we approach the July meeting, we see discussions and debate are beginning to intensify. That's as it should be. And of course, we conduct our business in a spirit of mutual respect according to our codes of conduct. And very significantly, we have a new generation that is emerging as leaders of the field in the US and who will contribute significantly to shaping this new vision. So I leave you with 2 pictures. One is the 2 hopes. One is one that shows COVID behind us, and the other that shows our gaze firmly planted on the road ahead. Thank you for your attention, and I can take some questions.
Thank you, Joel, for this overview. Any questions? So, you know, of course, these are, to some extent, they are regional efforts like the European strategy, but with a global impact for the field. And perhaps you can say a few words whether at this point it's still possible for people to get involved and how they would go about doing that?
It's certainly possible for people to get involved. And incidentally, of course, the European strategy work that went into that was an invaluable resource for Snowmass 2021. And a lot of people have worked on both, incidentally. So I think that right now, these ongoing seminar series, if you're interested in the evolution of machines anywhere in the world, this would be a good place to, I think, interact at this point, because we have to cover a lot of ground, and we don't necessarily, we can use additional expertise in evaluating the relative merits of things. I mean, we certainly want to avoid duplication as we look forward. We certainly don't want to miss any initiatives that we may have, that may not yet be represented at Snowmass. And people are always willing, always should feel okay, comfortable bringing forward ideas. And, you know, if somebody misses a deadline, that doesn't mean that that they can't inject their work into the report, at least in some informal way. So I would encourage people, if they want to work, or if they want to contribute, or even if they want to critique what we're doing, to please join in. Contact the relevant frontier conveners. All of that you can get to from the Twiki that whose link is given on the second page of this talk.
Thanks, Joel. Any further questions? Okay, thanks. So we come to the final presentation by Dr. Ketevi Assamagan from Brookhaven, who will talk about on behalf of the African Physical Society.
Hi. So first of all, I would like to apologize for my video earlier. I hope I didn't disturb the proceedings too much, but I cannot share my video now. Maybe that I should be allowed to share my video. I will share my screen at this stage. Okay, so All right, so let me get going. Just give me a second. Share my screen. All right, so I think you can see my screen share now. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and to talk to you guys here about the African strategy for fundamental and applied physics. So it's a bit like Snowmass or the European strategy or the Latin American strategy that was recently completed. In our case, in Africa, this strategy development is mandated by the African Physical Society, which you may or may not heard about, but there is a society like that. So there is a steering committee. You can reach the steering committee on this email list. More detail on this web page. We are also active on Twitter. There is a Twiki for working groups that are involved in this strategy. So I will briefly talk about motivation and structural organization, timeline, endorsement, and support, and how you can get involved if you wish to get involved. So physics strategies, they are regularly developed in other regions. European strategy and its updates, it's been going on regularly, 7 to 10 years. Same also for Snowmass. So I think in Europe and North America, people are used to having strategies, and the communities so used to it. They know what to do. They come together and they discuss and they develop a strategy report, and that's fantastic. Recently, our colleagues in Latin America also took the step to develop a comprehensive strategy on research infrastructures in high energy and cosmology and astrophysics. That's really a remarkable work that they did. You know, so the question is like in Africa, what exactly is happening? Okay, that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So folks in Africa are also getting together now to try to come up with a grassroots strategy driven by physicists. Okay. Now, that I should clarify that there's a hope for science in Africa. We have a lot of projects going on there that some of you may be involved in and some of you may not be aware of. In South Africa, we have Itemba Labs, which is an accelerator-based science facility, and it provides a framework for a lot of research related to medical physics, nuclear physics, radioisotope productions, and it's a national facility, but it's serving really an international community. And we have an array of projects that are based on astrophysics, and with observatories and telescopes, and also we have a number of countries and institutes that are involved in LHC physics. We have collaborations in CMS, in Atlas, in ALICE, and recently Madagascar has joined the DUNE collaboration. So stuff is going on in Africa that you may be aware of, you may not. And other projects are being developed, and the African Light Source is a huge project. It's similar to Sesame, but it's expected to be a huge facility, and hopefully it will be realized. We have other things going on, like for example, in Benin, there is an X-ray facility that's been put together, supported by the government and so forth. In Morocco, we have these huge solar plants and sustainable energy development So a lot of things are going on, but we need more. That's the point. We don't have enough physicists or scientists in Africa. Yeah, 15% of the people on this planet are living in Africa. Yeah, but we are producing very minuscule contribution to the global research output. But the African population is very young, and it's a huge human capacity that we have. Yeah. So what do we do? Those people really need to have the framework of education and to participate into the global development in the future. Yeah, and you can see, for example, you know, what is going on in Africa in terms of demographics. Yeah, we have the youngest people on the planet. Proportionately, they are in Africa. Okay, what is the future? It concerns all of us to try to make sure that those people are properly educated. So we need to encourage and strengthen higher education in Africa, capacity development, research infrastructures. And you will also notice that there are a lot of Africans who are now doing physics in Europe, United States, North America, even, you know, in Asian countries. They went there for their higher education and they never returned. That include myself. Yeah, and there needs to be a framework for those people to be beneficial to their country of origin, and if they wish to exercise their professional activity elsewhere, but nevertheless, how can they benefit, you know, the original countries? Those are big problems. Those are big issues. Yeah. So we believe that there is future in Africa. And you see the prediction of the population growth, you know, by 2050, there will be a sizable number of folks that are living in the geographical continental area of Africa. Yeah. So we cannot just do nothing. Yeah. Because ultimately it's a problem for the rest of the world. And I won't go into those things. You have seen, you know, a lot of things going on when people are trying to cross the Mediterranean. It's a problem for some European countries now. It's a problem for Africans with all the tragedies that are happening in those crossings. It's heartbreaking to see, you know. So we collectively, as a global society on Earth, have to pay attention to those things and decide what can be done. Yeah. Now, there are also, you know, the Africans have the African Union that is similar to the European Union. Maybe you are aware of it. Those people are trying to do a lot of things. They have strategies that are developed by the African Union for the entire continent. It's a monumental effort. I will just mention 4 of them. There is an African Union strategy for space physics. There is an African Union strategy for technical and vocational education and training. There is an African Union strategy for science, technology, and innovation, and also on education. Then there is a vision, an African Union vision for 2063. What should happen on that long-term scale? So you know that people are working, yeah. And so what we can see is that strategy or roadmap developments are not new in Africa. People know about it and they make roadmaps. But what happened to those strategies? Yeah. There is problem in implementation. Yeah. So governments, African governments, they have their roadmaps. Those are strategies. I just mentioned the African Union, for instance. Professional societies operating in Africa also have strategies, and there are large continental level strategies, but the issue have been implementation. Yeah? So those things get developed, written down, but eventually they are just shelved, unfortunately. So that brings me to the African strategy, which I want to talk to you about. So the an African strategy for fundamental and applied physics. So we call it ASFAP. Okay, what is that going to bring? Okay, that's a new effort that is starting on the continent now. If we already have so many strategies and they are not really being implemented, why bother to bring another one? It's a serious question. So the objective here is that we really want to engage the African and the international community, in the process of developing strategy. That is really lacking, because all the one I talked to you about, they are all top-down strategies, mandated by those huge organizations, and sometimes physicists like me and other people are not consulted, and we get it. There is a report, but the grassroots community probably, most likely didn't participate. So we want to do something at the grassroots, just like folks in Europe and North America are doing, so that people doing physics in Africa, they can also voluntarily come together periodically under the mandate of some African organization like the African Physical Society to develop a strategy by the common grassroots physicists. That's what this one, is about. And also, I mentioned the African Physical Society. Yeah, we would like that society to become a very strong professional body in Africa, similar to the European Physical Society or the American Physical Society. Our society in Africa is not at that level of being a compelling framework where all the physicists operating in Africa find themselves. It's not there. We want to transform it. And that's one object, is a serious objective. The other one is the networking aspect, to bring Africans all together and talk, discuss, disagree, agree, write something. They have worked together for a few years and they produce a common report. That would be remarkable. People in Europe can do that very easily. You have the experience to do it. Americans also have the experience to do it. Latin American folks have just started and they succeeded in doing it. They have established the framework and it's going to come easier for them later on. We want to establish something like that in Africa. So that's what ASFAP is bringing, which you don't see in all of the other strategies that I have just talked to you about. Yeah, so we have a broad footprint, but when you want to do that, we have noticed that we cannot in Africa do a strategy for particle physics. The community is small, or for nuclear physics, or for astrophysics separately. We have to bring all of those subfields together and have a comprehensive one. That's the difference, for example, for Snowmass, which is concentrated on particle physics. For Africa, is all of the physics that are relevant to Africans. Yeah. But we have taken some of the things that were happening in Snowmass or has already happened in the European strategy as an example, right? I myself, I am deeply involved in Snowmass. I am convening the community engagement frontier. So I've learned a lot of things which we are trying to reuse in the African strategy. So we have an organization. It's a Pan-African organization. There is a steering committee and an advisory committee. There are a lot of physics working groups. There are also engagement groups. And we have been trying to get a lot of folks involved. And some of the working group may have subgroup, all of those things. And we are at the phase now to ask for community input. And we also have a broad support. So all the logo I'm showing here are all of the international organization or local organizations who are supporting this project. I say that you should do this. This is important, okay? And you can see that there are some of top organizations here like UNESCO who are really saying that they want to see this thing done, and many others, yeah? So this list is growing. And in terms of International Advisory Committee, on the left here, you see the people who are in that advisory committee right now. You will recognize many of them as your colleagues. and the steering committee is these few people here. We have also added another committee called the observers. These are people who are established in the community, people who have experience with strategies, but also they understand the problematic of Africa. They have been operating on the continent and they know the problems, they can speak to the problems, and those people are observing what is going on, and then they can advise, they can help the steering committee steer the things better based on their observation. So in terms of working group, we have quite a lot of them, but because, like I mentioned, all of the groups are very small, the community is very small, so we have a 16 physics working group. Now, if you ask me, how did we identify those 16? Well, this is coming from what the African Physical Society has compiled as the major physics areas in Africa. But like I said, each of these groups are very small. Therefore, that's why we are all together in one strategy development. Then we have the community engagement. I mean, the engagement group, like community engagement. Here is about how do we talk to our politicians? How do we engage with our community? How do we talk about brain drain, all of the Africans who are now outside, and how can they benefit Africa? And then we also have physics education. Is a huge problem in Africa at every level, from primary all the way to tertiary. Women in physics, African women in physics. We want to promote, you know, that group and to participate in the physics of Africa and the physics relevant to Africa. Young physicists, you know, I run the African School of Physics. I know a lot of African young physicists who have obtained PhDs, and many of them are unemployed. It's really heartbreaking to see that these people, they don't have futures. And we are saying capacity development, do this. A lot of you, for example, are giving lectures in Africa. You are involved in many schools, but at the end of the day, these people get PhDs and they are not going anywhere. It's unacceptable. We have to do something about it. Okay, so each group has 3 to 4 people that are conveners. I'm showing here the one for particle physics. And in addition to all of these things, we have an ethics committee as well. I'm not going to say much about it. I think everybody knows, you know, what should be the roles. So you see that we are organized. In terms of the timeline, this African strategy was launched in November 2020, when we got the endorsement from the African Physical Society. So here's a timeline that we have, but of course, it's just a timeline. Here's suggestions, okay? A lot of things have been delayed. We are now at the level where we are calling for community inputs in terms of letters of interest, just like it's being done in Snowmass. But we have realized that we need to collect input in other ways. We need to have surveys. We need to have panel discussions, seminars, workshops, in whichever medium we can collect the input, and we can, you know, galvanize participation from African community and internationally. Yeah. So this is tentative. We are not going to produce a report in December of this year. It's certainly going to slip well into 2023. But the idea of this chart is to show you that we have some timeline that we would like to follow. Yeah. So we are just now only at the level of collecting input, and that may take some time because it's a slow process. We first have to explain to the community, why do we want them to submit their ideas in form of letters and so forth. And, you know, it's the first one. People need to understand why should they participate, and why do we need, and what are they going to get out of it. So we are in that process of explaining what the strategy is about to the community, to motivate them to participate. Now, in March, we're going to have a workshop, and community planning a workshop, where we're going to discuss where we are in the community input. Okay, you can participate, please do. And, you know, if you are doing physics with Africa, or you are interested, you are welcome. This is not something that is being done by Africans in isolation. Just like it was just said, you know, Snowmass or European strategy may be a regional motivated effort, but you look at everybody in the world participate, okay? So you are welcome to participate in the African strategy. Please don't be an observer, please come. So how can you contribute? So the collection of inputs, okay? If you have African graduate students in your laboratory, tell them about this stuff. If you can also submit LOI relevant to African projects here. You can participate in the working group. There's a way to register and so forth. And then you can also, you know, attend this workshop. It's going to be virtual. Okay, register here and come. Okay, so you know, I'm going to just say this, you know, by one of an African musician, you know, I want to be there when the people start to turn it around. And that is our objective here. We want to turn it around. When the triumph over poverty, I want to be there when the people battle against AIDS, nowadays against malaria, against COVID-19. I want to lend my hand, I want to participate, and please help us. So in conclusion, many roadmap or strategies have already developed in Africa. They are mandated and carried out by government, societies, institutions. Often they lack broad community input or consultation, and usually they face problem in implementation, and therefore whatever report they can come out with are shelves. With ASFAP, we propose to develop a strategy mandated by the African Physical Society with broad community consultation driven at the grassroots by physicists and with broad footprint in all the physics topics that are of interest to Africa, with the objective of establishing a periodic culture like we have in Europe and in the US. It becomes second nature that every 7 to 10 years, we will come together voluntarily and repeat the strategy and update it. We want to establish that culture in Africa. And in doing so, we want to influence the strategic direction taken by policymakers. Now, if it is 5,000 of us doing that in Africa, our politicians are going to listen. So we want a broad network of African physicists and also international physicists as well. And also, we will provide a framework for funding agencies and donors who are thinking, okay, we want to help by donating something in Africa, but how, where, you know, what is the framework? We believe that our strategy can help in that regard. And last but not least, we want to support the African Physical Society and develop it into an outstanding professional body like the European Physical Society or the American Physical Society. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ketevi, for this excellent introduction in this strategy effort, and you know all the opportunities and challenges related to that. So we have a couple of questions. I think Maxime was first.
Well, Ketevi, first of all, I would like to congratulate you with this excellent initiative. And I fully share your excitement. And I wish really that this process ends up in meaningful conclusions. One of the questions which I actually have is more maybe philosophical one, but I would like to hear your opinion. I mean, you mentioned that it's difficult, I understand, to develop the strategy for particle physics, nuclear physics separately because of the size of the community. But at the end of the day, if I take an example of CERN, I mean, it's an example of the global laboratory, which is constructed not only for science. It's constructed for science, for diplomacy, for policymaking, and etc. To your opinion, to which extent, even, of course, you participate in the LHC experiments with not so many people, but still, but to which extent you might be interested to engage or to get a help from CERN towards your future strategy updates for the African physics? So what would be your opinion based on the culture in Africa and etc.? Would it be helpful? Would it be useful? And what role CERN can play into your African strategy?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, CERN is one of our sponsors and one of our supporters of this strategy. And the representative of CERN is Emmanuel Tsismelis, where his name should be somewhere here. Yeah, here. So CERN International Relations. And you will notice that all of these trickies that we are using, I think, I'm not sure if, yeah, this is CERN tricky. Also, you see our mailing list at CERN.ch. So this effort is really using the logistics of CERN to try to really organize the community. So we have that, we have that support, and you know, I mentioned that some African countries are deeply involved in the LHC. Morocco is there in Atlas, Egypt, CMS, South Africa, Alice, and Atlas. And so we have, you know, a broad engagement with CERN in that regard. We also have an engagement with, you know, in the US. I think I mentioned at the beginning here that Madagascar is one African country that is really now a part of the Dune, you know, experiment, and we receive, you know, support from all of these international organizations. Now, in terms of the communities, yeah, within the broad framework where we have all of the physics that I mentioned, all of the physics group involved. Originally, we started by limiting the scope, but then after discussion with the community, people felt that if we're going to start this thing for the first time, it's best to integrate all the community, and maybe later on they might, as they grow, branch out and define, go in the direction of their well-targeted strategy. That's why we came back and put everything together. And you know, so our engagement, African engagement with CERN is really quite strong. In South Africa, they have the South Africa CERN program that has all of the program related to CERN, including ALICE, Atlas, Isolde, and theory based on particle physics and so forth. We have engagement with Brookhaven, with Fermilab in other contexts. So those links, we really want to, you know, strengthen that link to the international community and the international institute, and get the help. You know, like one example is this, using all of these email lists, the website, the Indigo, the Zoom. Those things are all CERN services that they have given to this strategy as a support, and we really appreciate it.
So then Chris Parks.
Many thanks, Ketevi, a really inspiring presentation. Can I ask about your LOI process and how the large international collaborations can best get involved with this?
Yes, so so for the LOI, so basically we have so this Indigo link, for example, basically it will take you to an Indigo where you can submit an LOI here. So it's based on CERN Indigo, just like when the European strategy, they were asking for collection of input. I think that was based on Indigo system. So when you go here and you say submit a new abstract, then it will take you to the process of where you will submit, you know, everything. I think everybody here is familiar with this sort of thing. So it's still open, and anybody can come here and do make their submission. So we are asking, just like in the context of Snowmass, in terms of LOI, no more than 2 pages, because we want eventually to group these LOIs in terms of topics that could be developed further. But of course, if some people already have well-developed narratives that could already be beyond LOI. They are more like they could be considered contributed papers, and that could be submitted as well.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
It might be good to also advertise this perhaps a little through the big collaborations that this process is happening. Next one is Marco.
Yeah, thanks very much for this great talk. And apologies for not allowing you to switch on your video earlier. I wasn't aware that Zoom was quite so
sorry,
brutal
Marco.
there.
I didn't realize that I hope I didn't stop the proceeding.
No, all good. I was approached or discussing with one of our students of Caribbean heritage when he saw the program and saw your talk. Unfortunately, he can't join this week, and he was wondering whether there was maybe ongoing effort already or potential for collaboration with particle physics initiatives in the Caribbeans. I presume that again an LOI is certainly possible, but I wonder, are there any ongoing collaborations in that direction?
Oh, Marco, actually, I'm not really sure if there is, especially in particle physics or particle physics related applications. With the Caribbean, I'm not sure if there is anything. Officially, there was. The particle physics community in Africa, they actually had a first meeting already a couple of months ago where each of the regions or countries presented what is going on there in terms of particle physics. I don't recall seeing any direct, engagement with the Caribbean community, but it's certainly something that, we would like to develop as well. So we will be more than happy to talk to this young man that you're talking about, and then we can see how to develop that type of collaboration. That will be really appreciated.
All right,
Thank you.
I'll bring you in touch. Thanks very much.
Hafiz?
Yeah, I think it's not really a question, but it's more of a comment. I know from my own personal experience that getting involved in big experiments is very useful. But at the same time, if you really want to develop something in your country or in your region, you must identify some relatively bigger size projects which are doable in your region or country, which are local. And something like a synchrotron light source, which you were talking about, can be something very, very beneficial and can bring a lot of good science, and not only physics, but it can bring also the multidisciplinary science into your country and technology. Because analyzing the data from LHC requires very special tools and a very special elite class like us, high energy physicists. And not everybody from your country or from your region can have access to these facilities. This is why I think that addressing the local problems, having a local project will be more helpful than anything else. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I fully agree. So the approach we have taken now is to explore all of those avenues through this strategy, and then make the recommendation to the policymakers and the funding agencies. There are these the African institutes that are involved in LHC. We want them to be supported. We want that to grow in Africa. We are happy that Madagascar has taken that step in June. There are some challenges there that we are aware of for their full participation, which is related to the comment that you are talking about now. And then there is this other project like the African light source. We hope that something like that will be realized, like you said. It will bring in, you know, some material physics, optics, and other related application with it. Yeah, I agree with your comments, and I also hope that we can succeed in this, and we can support all of the physics in Africa, you know, from particle physics to material physics and so forth, and that our policymakers, when they have our strategy report, they can also appoint an international panel beyond our report, perhaps similar to the P5 or HIPAP or whatever, so that some actionable item can then be made out of the strategy for them. Money resources are limited, and they will certainly be, they perhaps couldn't support everything, but if there's well-defined actionable item, taking into account what the society needs most, then it'll be useful. Then we begin to influence the directions of development in Africa and supporting African Institute participation in global projects at CERN, Fermilab, elsewhere. The, you know, SKA, for example, Africa has a huge chunk of it. Those are big things. So yeah, I hope that we succeed in this effort.
Okay, thank you very much again for this yeah, inspirational presentation. I hope that the whole session has helped to motivate some people to get involved in these processes in Africa and in the US, Snowmass, and you know, define the future of the field for the next generation. So the last thing that remains to be done is that I, you know, return the chairmanship to Marco, who will close the conference.
Thanks very much, Stefan. Thanks very much for chairing this, and you're very welcome to tell me if I go on for too long, but I hope not. This is the program we had this week. I will not attempt any summary of it. I do want to point out a couple of highlights that I liked a lot. One is from Rukmani's talk on Wednesday morning. I learned there, and a few others learned there, that the first woman physicist in India actually did her PhD in Manchester. I found that a very nice connection to the conference. At least some of us are in Manchester, even though we had hoped there would be many more. And I think I'm right in saying this is also the most popular tweet of the week. And the other one I want to highlight is the panel discussion we had. I want to thank in particular Chris Jackson, who dared as a geoscientist to join a whole bunch of particle physicists. But all three panelists, I think, did a great job. And the one takeaway message from that discussion is: be an ally. Whatever minorities we're talking about, we can't leave it just to them to sort of miraculously expand. They need all our support in reaching better inclusion and better diversity in the field. Then a couple of things. There will be a feedback survey, or there is already, and even before sharing this link, I have already received some responses as I linked it on Indico already. I will send this around by email as well, so feedback there is very welcome. It'll help also for future conferences. inform a little bit a few decisions we've taken and inform how those may be taken forward. And then proceedings, I mentioned already at the start of the conference, they will be on Zenodo. They will be optional. If you want to write some, you're welcome, and we'll circulate some instructions on that. The whole process will be relatively flexible, depending on how much you intend to write or not. And that leaves me then just to say a big thank you to a lot of people, and instead of reading out all the names, I put them here. So of course our International Advisory Committee, who helped in planning the conference, the local organizing committee, who helped with many aspects in preparing this. There are too many names here to read out. I want to highlight a couple though who really helped make this particular week work during the week. That's Florian Reis, who did all the Zoom organization together with our AV team, and uploaded things on YouTube and so on. And he'll still be busy for a little while to get everything on YouTube. But many thanks to him for many hours of taking care of this. And then there's Sophie Downs, who led the administrative support for the conference from the opening of registrations onwards. And as you well know, the conference wasn't planned like this, so she did a lot of work that now needs to be undone, and part of that is taking care of reimbursements, and I can assure you that these are being processed. They're advancing through the system, and those of you who still have to get their fees back from us will hopefully get that very soon. I don't have a precise date to give you right now, but certainly as soon as I receive something, I will pass that on. But this is definitely in progress now. And obviously, thanks to all the speakers. Congratulations to the poster prize winners again, and thanks to everyone for joining and for discussing and helping to make the conference run so smoothly. And this is the conference photo, also again a Zoom collage, and hopefully LeptonPhoton 2023 will look a little bit more like this, although on a different campus, and then we'll be in Melbourne. So thanks very much. You probably don't have very far to travel now, but stay safe. Thanks for joining, and take care.